Hey everybody, this is Jamie Pringle from Carroll Senior High School. We are happy to be with you today for the UIL Student Activity Conference.
And I am Ryan Barbe. I am the Technical Theater Director here at Carroll Senior High School. And we are thrilled to get to be doing this for you this year. We are going to talk about directing, either in class or as a student project or something like that, and just some of the things that we look at as we are getting ready to direct. So I'm going to start off by speaking about script selection. This is one of the most important aspects of what you're going to do as a director. I like to particularly, my last 5 years was spent teaching at a middle school, and so I had to pick shows every year. And my big thing was making sure that I knew the group of students that I was going to be working with so that I could pick the right show for that group. So I usually, I would have a Theater 3 class, which was all 8th graders, and I would pick the show based on who I knew was in that class. And everything else could be filled in with my 7th graders or 8th graders that were not necessarily involved in that class. So I would look for roles that fit really well with some of my strongest people. I would look for shows that I really enjoyed, because that's key. If you don't like the show, nothing you do is going to work for you. And that your cast is going to feed off of your excitement for that show as well. And so if your cast knows you don't really like the show, it's not going to work out for you. So you want to look for something that you really enjoy, something that fits the people that you are going to be working with. So if that's other students in your class, you're probably going to have a really good grasp of who those people are and what they might be good at. And so you want to look at scenes or shows that are going to work really well for that group of people that you may be working with. And then something that may get them really excited as well, because the more excited they are about the show, the easier your job is as you move forward through the process. I was taught early on that directing is 90% casting and 10% fixing the mistakes that you've made through that process. And so when you've got a show that the people you're working with are going to be really excited about, you're going to get the best opportunities out of those people. You're going to get the best performances and the best work ethic from them. And that's going to help you immensely as you move forward. And that's really, I mean, the three big things that I look for in script selection. I don't really look at much else, except does this fit in my budget? But if you're working in a classroom environment, you may not really need to worry about that too much. You may be able to have the freedom to do just whatever it is you can think of. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. That's all I have about script selection, really. I will turn it over to Ms. Pringle here to discuss scene breakdown.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you guys today, and I want to talk about just making a scene breakdown. The reason that I think this is most important, and of course, this is set up for Amelie the musical, but you know, with a play, you're going to want to do kind of the same thing as well. So across the top, I have the act, and then I have all of the characters, and they go all the way across through the bottom. There were so many characters to go through. And then I break it up with the musical. I go from scenes, which I've colored in green, and then songs, which I colored in blue in this instance. And that's just to keep it clear in my mind. Now, when I do this, I do it for musicals mainly because I'm looking to see who can play more than one part a lot of times. If you have a show where you're doing a play that needs more people than you have actors, you want to do that, and you want to make sure that they have enough time to change clothes, that they have enough time to change their look if you want them to come on as someone totally different. And I just go through and put an X if they're in the scene. You can see this goes all the way through Act 1. This is still Act 1. And then we get to number 21, which was halfway. And then down here, I have Act 2, same thing. Now, once I cast my show, I may go through and replace or at least add to it the actor that's playing the role. And then this would be a great time for me to go in and combine parts. So if young Amelie is also playing Philomene, I would put those two together and I would use a YA instead of an X for when she's young Amelie and an NAP instead of an X when she's Philomene, just to keep myself straight, because this is going to go not only to me for auditions, but it's going to go to my stage managers. It's going to go to my costume people. It's going to go kind of to everybody who is thinking about the show. So a scene breakdown, once I know my show, a scene breakdown is one of the first things that I want to put together, just so I can keep it straight in my mind. The second thing that I want to put together is my tentative rehearsal schedule. I am going to look down here and show you guys. Oops, I'm having trouble. Aha, I can move that. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm moving or not, but it's my Zoom. I'm going to look at spring of last year because we had this schedule ready to go and it doesn't have colors on it. So if you look, well, I'll explain that in just a second. If you look here, so here we have Miss Nelson auditions, and then this schedule went all the way through the show, which opened right here, Miss Nelson performances. So what I would do is I go through and I begin to make decisions on what I want to do each day. And we call people based on if they're needed that day. We don't just do all calls very often. So if you look here, I've got the month, the date, the day of the week, the time of rehearsal, the rehearsal details. This is where I'm going to put what are we doing that day so actors know if they need to come. For example, we've got blocking scene 1 and the dance alma mater. We've got blocking scene 2 and dance worst kids of all. And that was because I was blocking and our choreographer was working with the dancers. So I could have those two things happening at the same time. General conflicts. This day we had a pastel picnic, a thespian meeting, knowing that choir is rehearsing that day. So I need to take a day off so that because my cast won't be able to be there. Here I put in actor conflicts. Now you don't see any in there right now because this is a show that we kind of had to scrap because of COVID. And then staff conflicts. That would be like my choreographer can't be there that day, or my, we're only working blocking and we don't have a person playing the piano that day. Now, when I put my schedules together, I don't know if everybody does it like this, but I do. I start at opening. And I work backwards because I know how many tech rehearsals that I want, how long I think that's going to take me. And you know that just from directing. I mean, Mr. Barbe and I have both been doing this a while. So I know that I want those 4 tech rehearsals going in, 5 if you count this really long 9 to 3. Before I even have a tech rehearsal, I'm already running the show with no tech. You can look finishing up blocking, doing run-throughs as we're blocking, but I work backwards. And then if I don't have enough time, I go back in and kind of readjust my times. And that just comes from experience, just knowing how long things take. For example, we were supposed to be out of town during this week in New York, so we weren't going to have rehearsals there. That's a major conflict, which is in blue. I also mark our yellow days. Yellow days are days that we're off. Sometimes I think it's important to remind people, even more than when they have rehearsal, but more when they have days off. We tend to try to take Wednesdays off if possible. Sundays are usually off, that kind of thing. I'm going to go even backwards in time more to last fall. Whenever we are in rehearsals, because this is a living, breathing calendar. It's a Google calendar. Anybody can look at it. If I make changes in it, I usually write it right here in the change in yellow or red or something bright so that they can see it. And I date my change because I don't want somebody 2 weeks from now when I change to rehearsal saying that they didn't have an opportunity to know about that. What gray rehearsals mean is gray rehearsals mean they've passed. So it's a nice way to look at things and know where we are in the schedule. even in the winter, you could see where we kind of were going through, and we, oops, never came back after spring break. So that's where the rehearsals stop. Our last rehearsal was actually right here, Wednesday, the 11th during spring break. So that's kind of how I put together rehearsal schedules. To me, starting and going backwards is absolute key. I have to do that so I know my end date and work backwards. When I'm doing a musical, I also tend to count rehearsal hours, and I will ask my choreographer, like, how many rehearsal hours do you need? Sometimes it's 40. Sometimes it's, we usually have about 100 hours of rehearsal for a musical. So we're just kind of dividing and looking at those numbers and trying to make sure that we have it. You can see back here, we had the student conflict section is right here. This is tech conflicts right here. So as you look at that, I mean, you can kind of see that's how I put together a rehearsal schedule. I do it on Google Sheets so I can share it with people. They can look at it anytime on their phones, pull it up. And then I also post it week by week on our call board. The final thing that I'm going to talk about is I use email me forms for my audition forms. I really like them. I started out, it's a free service, but I started out using the free service and then I moved to the paid version because we just used it so much. And the reason I like this is that I can put plenty of things on it. This is our one act play audition form. So the first thing I have on my form is a synopsis, and I have links for where they can look at the script and read it. I always have my schedule done before auditions because I want them to know when they're going to be called so they can be really upfront with me about conflicts. I can work around almost anything, but I can't work around it if you tell me the week before. So I'm very strict about conflicts and our schedule. I tell them that they're going to need to read from the script, what day it is, when we're going to do this stuff, how we're going to do it. And then we have a whole bunch of general policies. You may not have this section in yours, but we talk about the schedules, what we do for meals and snacks and production fees and additional expenses and cell phones and pickup and performance and strike. We just get it all out there so everybody knows what's required. And then here's the form part. And this is great because, like, to put their name here, I just click name and it makes these little boxes for me. And you can get real fancy or you can be really simple. But the great thing is afterwards, I can go into my data that I've collected on these forms and disseminate it in any way I need to. So I've got name, grade level, student information, special skills. For one act, they're only allowed to pick male or female ensemble because we want people who are willing to do whatever we need them to do. They do have an optional resume and headshot upload section. They can tell us the tech positions they're interested in if they're a technician. And we also have them submit a design as a technician to kind of show us what they're thinking of: sketches, renderings, documents, photos, essays, anything they want to tell us that might help them showcase what they want to do. A lot of people don't do this. I have them write their bio and put it in right here at the audition form. I do not chase people around for bios. It has changed my life to have their bios done here. And now my kids just keep their bios and they know that on the audition form, they're going to have to put that bio in. I also get their t-shirt size right there. Again, something that I want to have from the very beginning. Dietary restrictions, conflict information. And I have this big old long section about what is a conflict and that I need to know the times and I need to know, all of kind of our basic rules that we have for conflicts. And then I have a student agreement form. This is where I put, I know there'll be evenings and weekends. I know that I must attend the rehearsals. I know I must call by 12 if I'm sick and can't come to rehearsal. All of these things that we do in our department. And then there's a parent agreement, which is very much the same, but it just says they can call their parent in and have their parent do this and sign it, but that they know there's a rehearsal calendar that your kid has committed to. They have permission to audition. There is never a guarantee of casting for anyone in our department, like all of this stuff that we put in. And that's kind of my form. And like I said before, I can pull all of this information into a Excel spreadsheet, and I can say, okay, for this Excel spreadsheet, I want the name and I want their t-shirt size. Boom, it's a spreadsheet, and I send that to whoever is taking care of t-shirts. If I need all the bios, I just pull all the bios, and then I can have someone go through them. Oh, I do call them all. So if I have 35, 40 people audition for one act, I will call all of them and take out anybody who did not make it into the cast and crew. I'll take them out, which I can do in this very easily. And then I can be public with the things that I share, like t-shirt sizes, stuff for our contact list, addresses, phone numbers, that kind of thing that I've taken in this. And I like it because I can give certain people certain information. I don't have to give everybody all the information. So that's always good if you're dealing with boosters and helpers and things like that that don't need to have all the information. You can put notes on this. You can go through and look at their audition forms and put notes right in there. I don't do that. I still do it old style with a pencil and pen. Do my notes that way, but you can write notes directly into onto their audition form with this too. So I really recommend Email Me Form. I like it a lot. But that's kind of my scene breakdown, the way I do scene breakdowns, rehearsal schedules, and audition forms. So I'm going to turn it back to Mr. Barbe so that he can talk to you guys about just running auditions.
Awesome. So yeah, we're going to talk about audition sides first, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the process. And I have different processes depending on what I'm auditioning for. But we'll talk about that here in a minute. Number one, the big thing that you want to have for your auditions, particularly for your cold readings, are going to be your sides. And depending on your situation, you can go one of two different ways with this. If you're doing this within a classroom setting, you probably just want some small 2 or 3 person scenes that aren't going to take up too much time, like a page, maybe a page and a half. I wouldn't go much further than that in something like that if you don't have to, because you're gonna have to hear it over and over and over again, and you don't want to hear the same 3-4 minute scene over and over and over and over again if you can help it. So you either want to keep them really small, where you've got 2 or 3 characters on it. And if you really want to get into how people are going to relate to each other, you want to limit it to just 2 if you can. Or in the case that I had with my middle schoolers, I would have 70 to 100 different kids showing up for auditions. And so I would just need to get as many kids through as quickly as possible. So I would select scenes with like 8 to 10 characters in it, even if they only had 1 line. Most of the time I knew these kids, so I was able to figure out, based off the way they read that 1 line, where I can fit them in the show as I need to. I don't recommend doing that unless you have to. It's a lot to keep up with, and you really need to do your work ahead of time to schedule out who's going to be reading which scenes so that you know who has read, who hasn't, and all that stuff. In a classroom setting, though, if you're doing a student project, I would really stick with 2 to 3 characters in the scene, and I do a page to a page and a half and no longer than that. And I wouldn't do, if you've got some meaty scenes, yeah, you want to select from those, but you don't want to limit it to that. You want to do some of the fluff scenes as well, so you can get an idea of where everyone fits with each different character, so that you can make the best choice possible for your cast. So audition process then, this is where you can have the most fun. Typically for a normal show, I would, with 70 to 100 kids coming in and auditioning, I would not do monologues. That's too many to sit through. And when you may have a limited amount of time to be able to see as many people as possible, you don't want to do that if you can help it. Now, if you've got the time If it's a small group of people that you're auditioning and you've got the time, you want to limit it to a 30 to 45-second monologue to get an initial idea of where to read them in cold readings, perfect. That's not an issue. But if you've got a whole bunch of kids coming into audition or a whole bunch of people, you really don't want to have to sit through that many monologues. It's a lot. So I would normally just have them come in and we would just do cold readings. Now, when I was working my one act when I was auditioning, I wouldn't let them read from a script until day 4, because I would do a week-long auditioning process in class, because I only used my 8th graders for this. And we really had a lot of fun. I would start them initially with a group of them on stage, and I would give them different scenarios to one by one walk across the stage with some kind of a purpose, fitting in whatever it was I told them. So it's something like someone has just told you a really nasty secret about a friend, and you have spotted that friend across the stage, and you were going over to tell them what that person said. So that way you're seeing how they physically embody that motivation to go talk to that person. And you're seeing how well they'll take direction. And that's key. Acting ability aside, if they can't take direction, you probably don't want them. So you're looking for that. And then we would go from there to, I would just bring in magazines. And so it would be like a National Geographic, or I would bring in my wife's dietitian magazines, really dry stuff. And I would say, okay, you are going up to read. I'm handing you this magazine. Open it to a page, put your finger on a paragraph, and read that paragraph to me. And it's seeing how they can read on the spot, and can they make this thing that they've never read before sound interesting? Is it engaging when they read this? And so I would have them do stuff like that. And then came their favorite day, which was pantomimed silent dodgeball day. And it was their favorite thing in the world to do. My only rule was you can't break into fights, because that's where it always went without that rule. But so they would have to, without discussing, they were improvising I left out the slow motion. They would improv a slow motion game of dodgeball without discussing it at all. And so they had to create who their characters were on stage, who was the referee, who decided to be the referee, how did they split into teams, and then how did they interact with each other in this slow motion pantomimed game where you really had to make eye contact and understand who is throwing a ball at you so that you can react properly. Are they reacting to getting hit properly? Are they catching the ball properly? And they had so much fun with it. And it's a blast to watch as a director as well, because you're really starting to see their process as actors and how they want to tell a story. And then after we've done all of that, then we finally get to reading out of the script. At that point, I have seen all kinds of information about what they can do on stage before I've even had them read from the script. So I've already formulated ideas, and then I let them surprise me with the way they read. I will not lie. Most of the time when we pick shows, we have people in mind for certain roles. I have never had a cast work out the way I thought it would initially, because someone always surprises me in auditions and makes the case that they are absolutely the right person for that role. And so that's what you're looking for through these processes. And I mean, I highly recommend anytime you can get them a pantomimed slow motion game of dodgeball, do it. It tells you more about them as an actor than anything else you can have them do. It's absolutely amazing watching their storytelling process through something like that. And then, of course, when you're reading them for scenes, try to match them up with people that you think they might work well with, who can push someone else to get deeper into what they're doing, because you've always got that one person that can really pull something out of someone else. And you want to look for putting them with the right people so that you can really elevate everyone's performances, because that's the key. The more decisions they're making without your input, the better off your show is going to be, because then all you have to do is refine where they're at. And so you're looking for people that can make choices that don't necessarily need to be told, this is what I need you to do. Some people have an inherent understanding of scripts. They can read them and they know how to say words based on that. Other people need a little bit more work, which is why script analysis and table reading is really important once you get to that part of the process. But what you're looking for is people that will make decisions, that can take risks, bold risks on stage, and that you will only have to refine to get them, and really just say, hey, I need you to enter from stage right or up stage left, and you're exiting, down left, or whatever it is. But I like to give them as much freedom as possible on stage to make the right decisions. And then I just refine where I need it, which makes my job a lot easier. And I can sit back and just enjoy what they're doing every day in the rehearsal process. Ms. Pringle, did you have anything to add with any of that?
I just really agree with what you said about when I have time and when we're doing shows that aren't, maybe aren't a musical where you're doing, dance call, vocal call, cold reads or whatever. But when I have time to really get into the audition process, I'm always looking at what can I have them do that will show me as an actor how they're going to fill in the blanks. Like, I'm looking for an actor that is doing some stage business while they're doing a cold read. Not that they're blocked, but that they've thought of something, that gets up and goes over and makes themselves an imaginary sandwich while they're having this conversation. I'm just interested in what they're going to bring to the table. Because nobody really wants to have to work with an actor who is just a puppet, and you tell them they have to go here, they have to corner out like this, want them to stand with their hands on their head. I mean, that's never going to look normal. So you want to play as much with them to get to see what they'll do when they're not the focus of a scene. I don't want blank faces. I don't want people that are just sitting there waiting to say their line. I want people who are going to be the most interesting person on stage. Even for my ensemble, I'm looking at people who can carry on an imaginary conversation behind, and not pull focus. So, when we're auditioning, I think that, every director has their tricks and tips and things that they look for, but I'm just looking for actors that bring something to the table, that listen to each other, that their line will change based on the inflection of hearing what the other person said. And the more you can do with that, the less you need them to read from the script. Sometimes I've cast entire shows with never reading from the script. I don't do that often because it freaks my students out, but it's possible. It's possible because you're seeing what you need to see just by having them interact in kind of improv situations, in warm-up situations, just looking who are your leaders, who are the people that jump in with both feet, who needs a little bit more help to become part of the group. And you're just kind of looking for that dynamic, that chemistry, I guess, that it is. And so cold reads aren't the only way to see that. Monologues are not the only way to see that. So be creative with your auditions, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to limit your slow motion game of dodgeball to that. You can come up with other scenarios that are still telling stories that require them to make decisions. And that's the biggest thing is you are looking for actors that can make decisions on their own on stage based on what they know about the story. And like Ms. Pringle said, changing inflection based on the way a line is delivered. The way a line is delivered changes your reaction to it. And you need to be listening for that. The bane of my existence is actors who decide before they even come into rehearsal, this is the way a line should sound. That's not the way it works, because if you do that, you are not actively listening to the people on stage. And if you're not actively listening to the people on stage, you are not responding truthfully. And that's what you're looking for from your actors. You want actors that will listen to the other people on stage and will change what they are doing based on what's given to them. That's really important.
I would also say if you have multi days to have your auditions, just know some actors are not improvisational actors. It's hard for them, but sometimes if you see, especially if it's somebody that you know and you're like, boy, I really like them, they're not getting it, do the same activity the second day, because sometimes they have to go away, process, and come back, and they'll bring something really interesting to the table on the second day. So just know not everybody is like that person who jumps out there and who takes all the risks. Sometimes they do need to process. And that's just going to give you a better idea of how that actor is going to work, that they really have to think through their blocking. And then once their blocking is in their head, then they're going to blossom. Because, every actor is different, just like every director is different. So,
And that's a really, really good point. Because it is sometimes we need a little bit of time to think about what it is we're doing to be able to get our best out. And like she said, not everyone is good at improv. That is a skill that for some of us is very difficult to hone and really improve. I think we've covered everything.
I think we have, especially just the thought process of what a director thinks of and how they prepare before you even see the actors. That was kind of my important thing to kind of show to new directors. There's a lot of work that goes in that the directors do before you even start thinking about actors. And we can go on and on about research and all that stuff. But today we wanted to just make sure you are ready for your audition with your potential cast, and that
Exactly.
you thought of everything and you kind of have a plan going into auditions in the beginning of your rehearsals.
So we thank you for joining us. We were thrilled to get to do this for you. Hopefully we will see you again sometime.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye.